Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a first look at the all-new 2024 GPD Win Mini. We've got some really nice upgrades here when you compare it to the 2023 model, but they did remove one main feature that I personally would have loved to see here, and that's going to be OCULink around back. That was one of the main sellers, at least for me, with the 2023 Win Mini. But other than that, I think we've got some really nice upgrades here, like a brand new Ryzen 8000 series APU, and they've also upgraded the 7-inch IPS display. Now, it's always been a 120Hz display that looked really good in this small form factor handheld, but now it supports VRR. So we've got FreeSync support here, and as far as I can tell, this may be the same exact display that they use in the ROG Ally. Either way, it does look great, and now we've got variable refresh rate support on the Win Mini. But there is one thing that they removed here that I wish they would have kept from the original, and that's going to be OCULink around back. Now, unfortunately, with the 2024 model, OCULink has been replaced with a full-size USB port, and they stated that a lot of people were wanting a full-size on this. OCULink was awesome on the original Win Mini, and if that's something you definitely need to plug in an eGPU and just get really great performance, I would go with the older version with that 7840U. But we still have USB 4 here, and it does support 40 gig protocol. We've got another USB port around back, full-size USB with this new model, 3.5mm audio jack, micro SD card, and our gaming/keyboard switch. And given that we're working with a clamshell handheld here, we still have those recessed Hall-based analog sticks. The D-pad and the face buttons are basically ripped directly from the PS Vita, so if you like those dome switches behind them, then you're not going to have any issues with this. On the original, they worked out great. On this, same exact thing. Now, of course, whenever we take a look at any handheld, it's going to be compared to some of the best on the market, like the ROG Ally and especially the Steam Deck. It's named the Mini for a reason. I mean, as you can see, this thing is absolutely tiny when you compare it to these other two, and I wanted to give you a size comparison. So here we have it next to the Steam Deck. I did want to open up the shell. By the way, this is the OLED Steam Deck, so it does have a bit of a bigger screen, coming in at 7.4 inches. But yeah, I mean, this is a very, very small handheld. It can actually fit in your back pocket. Next up, we've got the ROG Ally. Ally is a bit smaller than the Steam Deck, but still not as mini as the Mini. Now, don't let the size fool you. This thing is actually putting out some really great performance, and one of the main things that I really love about this is the built-in QWERTY keyboard. So it's pretty easy to type on, it does use dome switches, and we've got a trackpad right in the center between our analog sticks, D-pads, and face buttons. And when it comes to the specs of the new 2024 GPD Win Mini, for that APU, we have the AMD Ryzen 8840U. So we've got an upgraded APU here, 8 cores, 16 threads, got a base clock of 3.3 GHz and a boost up to 5.1. The 8840U still uses the Radeon 780M. It's based on RDNA 3. We've got 12 compute units, and this will run it up to 2700 MHz. And the main difference between the 8840U and the 7840U is the NPU here. It's upgraded, so they call it AMD Ryzen AI, and we can do up to 16 tops with just the NPU. But in total, we can do up to 38 tops of AI performance out of this, utilizing the CPU cores and the GPU cores. It's definitely a step up from the 7840U, but I'm not exactly sure how many people are using their handheld gaming device for AI tasks. You can pick up the new Win Mini with a couple different RAM and storage variants, up to 64 gigs of LPDDR5 at 7500 megatransfers per second, and you can do up to a 2TB 2230 M.2 NVMe SSD. We also have Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2, a 44.24 watt-hour battery, and this is running Windows 11, but one of the major upgrades here is the new display. And again, I'm not 100% sure if this is the same exact display out of the ROG Ally, but on paper, I mean, it looks basically identical. But right off the bat, this is a landscape display. A lot of the handhelds on the market do use a portrait display, so the BIOS looks a little funky, sometimes stuff doesn't scale right. But we've got a true landscape LTPS display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080, so it is a 16:9 aspect ratio display. Variable refresh rate up to 120 Hz, so it does support FreeSync, 100% sRGB, 500 nits of brightness, DC dimming, and 314 pixels per inch. It's a great screen for this, and having that variable refresh rate is amazing for a little handheld like this. I've always loved the form factor of the Win Mini, and GPD does offer some grips that will attach to the bottom of this. Personally, I don't like using them. That way I can just set this flat right on the desk. Don't have to worry about it tipping over or anything like that. But yeah, I've always found it a really comfortable handheld to hang on to. I can reach all of my buttons, analog sticks, get over to the D-pad really easily, face button, shoulder buttons, triggers, and again, all of these face buttons will be using dome switches, even the D-pad over here, so if you're not into that, you might not like the feel, but these are the same thing they used in the Vita, and that thing was great for fighting games. The rear triggers here are linear, great for racing games. And when it comes to navigating windows, GPD has always done a pretty good job. Now right now, I've actually got this in kind of keyboard mode, so I can use my analog sticks and buttons to navigate on screen. I can get through everything I need. Probably need to adjust the mouse cursor here when it comes to the analog sticks. But remember, we've got that trackpad right in the middle, and usually I've just got this switched over to game mode so it acts as a controller, and I use the trackpad and built-in keyboard. Now, one thing I will tell you is while you're holding this like a gaming handheld, getting to that trackpad is a bit hard, and it's great to have the use of those analog sticks as your on-screen mouse cursor. But I've been able to type up on this built-in keyboard with no problem at all, whether it's on the table itself or if I'm holding it in handheld mode. But getting to the trackpad with your thumbs is a bit of a chore. So it's great they do have this option to use the analog sticks as your on-screen mouse cursor. But yeah, I mean, typing up on this thing, not bad at all. You can go through, browse the web, YouTube, search through your favorite game store, and it is a backlit keyboard. It's just a single zone with a white LED. One thing I'd love to see GPD do in the near future is add their own control center software. I completely understand that we can head over to their website and download Motion Assistant, but it looks a little something like this. So while I'm in game, we have to kind of go back to the desktop or bring this up over our game window. Having a small control center from GPD would be nice to be able to change our TDP, resolution, refresh rate. And for this, I've actually been using x86 Tuning Utility Handheld Edition. It is working on the Win Mini at the time of making this video. And with this, I can basically control every parameter of this handheld from the built-in controller, and we can bring this up on screen anytime, even while we're playing a game. So we do have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth toggle, resolution toggle, TDP. We can also park some of these cores, so we could make this a 4-core if we wanted to, just to save a little bit of power. You can disable the turbo boost on the CPU. Lots of great features here, and this is what I've been going to with this handheld recently. But of course, I wanted to give you a look at the variable refresh rate display here. From Windows, we can go into the display settings, advanced display options, and we can swap this from 60, 120, or dynamic 60, 120. And this is awesome because even over in AMD software, it does detect this as a FreeSync display. So we can enable this, you can turn it off if you don't want it. Personally, love having it on, don't have to worry about any kind of screen tearing or anything like that. And having this 120 Hz display for indie games is awesome. Here's Hades, 1080p. Up in the top left-hand corner, got Afterburner. You can see we are at 120 FPS, and I've got the TDP on the Win Mini set at 15 watts. It will play this game at 120, 10 watts if you take it down to 900p, and luckily with this game we do have resolution options, but I'm at 1080 just to match that resolution of the display, and it's super smooth. I definitely wanted to show you some more games running on this 8840U. Here's Forza Horizon 5. We've got those linear triggers that work great for these racing games. Launching, drifting, it'll work on the left or the right trigger. We're at 1080p medium settings, 20 watt TDP, and we're averaging 87 FPS on this little handheld with Forza Horizon 5. But yeah, this is an easier one to run on these APUs. Very well optimized, and on most everything that I've tested, I've seen decent performance. Of course, with some stuff, we do have to drop the resolution down, but I really do like playing racing games on the Win Mini. Had to throw in a fighting game. We've got Mortal Kombat 1, and with this, I had to go down to 900p. We're at low settings with FSR set to balanced. Still right there at 60. I also tested Street Fighter 6. That's one of those games that you can actually take the wattage down to around 15 watts, medium settings, 900p. Have a really good time with fighting games on this thing. To make it a bit easier on me, I'm going to go ahead and set this up stationary. I've got an Xbox controller connected over Bluetooth, and it is propped up a bit, so it's not going to overheat. It's not flat on the desk. Here's Horizon Forbidden West, 720p low at a 20 watt TDP. Very impressed here, and I know we're not at 60 FPS, but having that variable refresh rate display really does make a difference. No tearing, doesn't look like we're getting many hiccups here, at least on the screen side of things. It's actually pretty smooth. Also wanted to throw in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, just using the built-in benchmark, 900p with their performance preset. So this is for the lower end PCs. It still looks great on this smaller display, and we're at a 23 watt TDP. We got an average of 84 FPS, and this means, we could actually take some of these settings up, usually set it to performance and then start upping each individual setting by itself just to get better visuals out of it. Palworld is another one I wanted to throw at this thing, and we do have to drop this down to 720p on most of these APUs. The game itself doesn't have FSR built in. If it did, we could get much better performance at a higher resolution. Or if you don't mind playing this at 30 FPS until we get some more optimizations, it's totally possible. But at 23 watts, 720p low, we get an average of around 54 FPS. Cyberpunk 2077, and I do want to give it up to CD Projekt Red, the developers of the game, for really making this work on APUs. They kind of did it for the Steam Deck, but a lot of the optimizations that they've put into the game do transfer over to other iGPUs. 900p low, 20 watt TDP. We can play this game over 60 FPS. In the built-in benchmark, we actually get an average of 66 FPS with it set up just like this. And the final game I wanted to test out was HellDivers 2, 720p low, 23 watt TDP. I actually haven't seen this kind of performance out of the game on an iGPU yet, but it's been a few days since I've tested it. Not sure if the developers have done an update to kind of get a little more out of it on these lower end systems, but we're getting an average of around 71 FPS out of this game. The final thing I wanted to show off here was just average battery life, and this is kind of estimated, but since we know the size of the battery and how much this is pulling from the battery in total, we can do some simple math and kind of calculate what's going on. I'm going to use Cyberpunk 2077 for this. Uncapped frame rate, we're at a 15 watt TDP, screen brightness 50%, looking like at 15 watts we're pulling around 26 watts, a little over 26 watts in total from the battery. Taking it down to 10 watts, that drops down to around 19 watts from the battery. So this gives us a pretty good idea of what kind of battery life we're going to see out of this. 50% screen brightness, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth is on, and I've set the refresh rate on the display to 60 Hz. We've got a 44.24 watt-hour battery with the Win Mini. At a 10 watt TDP, total draw from that battery is 19.5 watts, looking at about 136 minutes. At a 15 watt TDP, up to 26.5 watts, about 100 minutes, and at 20 watts, jumps up to a total draw of 32.5 watts from the battery. Right there, around 81 minutes. Now this is just kind of an estimate, and I think we could get really close there for what we have, knowing exactly what size this battery is and how much this thing's really drawing. So it's not looking bad, given the form factor here and battery size, but if you're looking for the best battery life out of a handheld, Steam Deck OLED is definitely where it's at. So far, in the time I've spent with the new 2024 GPD Win Mini and that 8840U, actually really great performing device. Now it's not coming that far ahead of the 7840U, but we do have this new screen. Variable refresh rate is the way to go on these handhelds, especially when you can't run those games quite at 60 FPS. And in my opinion, that's the biggest upgrade for this unit here. Now I do wish they would have left OCULink alone and just left it here with the 2024 model. I personally do like using OCULink with this small device. And given the fact that GPD does make the G1 eGPU, which is the exact eGPU I've been using with the older model of this, I think it would have made sense to go ahead and then leave OCULink right here with the new Win Mini. I will have a full review video coming up in a few days. Want to spend a little more time with this, and we're really going to kind of put this up against the older 7840U model. We'll run some benchmarks, gaming, same TDP. We'll also check out battery life. I'm really interested to see the performance difference between the 8840U and the 7840U. But first impressions, and knowing what I know about the 7840U in the first place, I think we're going to see just a bit better performance on the 8840U. And I wouldn't run out and upgrade to this model from the old Win Mini. I'd wait for the next generation, but if you were thinking about getting a Win Mini in the first place, I would probably opt to go for the 8840U version. But that's going to wrap it up for this first look video. If there's anything else you want to see running or tested on this device, just let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning a little more about the 8840U version of the GPD Win Mini, I'll leave some links down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about the upgrades on this device. And like always, thanks for watching.